Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Super Deluxe Games Cast. It is Thursday, July 13th. I have got an old fashioned here that I made specifically for this occasion. Gramped.
I can spell. I fat fingered the keyboard. I promise I know how words are spelled.
Honestly, I like Gramped Stompner better, or whatever the fuck you were gonna put in there. Like
Gramped Stompner.
Gramp Stompner.
Gramped is like a fucking Deltarune name, honestly.
Gramped Stompner is actually Earth 2 Grant Stoner.
And Finn's gone. He's out for the night.
Finn's like, look, Grant is allowed to make these jokes.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. It's not because why. Look, I'm for a lot of things, but I'm never for misspelling our guest's name. Derek.
Yeah, that's what it really is.
Gramped Stompner. So, guys, our good friend Grant Stoner is here. Grant does a lot of the journalism shit. He's always doing a journalism somewhere. What's up, buddy?
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me.
I am much better now that you're here.
True.
Guys, video games. It's been a week for video games.
But when is it not a week for video games?
You know what? Sometimes, Finn, I wish it wasn't a week for video games. But this week was definitely a week for games. We've got the Microsoft trial to talk about. Finn, what are you wearing?
Those are called sunglasses because he's a cool guy.
His future must be
the coolest.
His future's bright.
There we go.
Hey, we got a first time chat. Hello, welcome. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about what we've been playing. Derek, we had another topic.
We're gonna talk accessibility some because
accessibility stuff because it's
important.
Yes, it is. Yes,
yeah.
And that is, of course, I can think of nobody better to talk about it than Grant. So, and Grant, this is like your what, 7th or 8th time on the podcast? Like,
stop counting.
Is it? No,
I don't think it's that much, but you've graced us with your presence quite a few times, and I'm very happy about that.
He has.
It's always a good time when you're on, bud.
Thank you.
Well,
I always enjoy coming on.
I know, I know you do. I would feel the same way if I was you. So we'll go ahead and kick it off with what we've been playing as we always do. Actually, wait, no, I've got a question.
Okay,
for Derek.
Oh no,
Derek. Not even so much a question as a request. I'm going to need you to tell me a little bit more about that gumbo.
Oh yeah, I made some gumbo today because, as you can tell from my voice, I've been sick today. It was much worse this morning. I mean, I sounded like Steve-O, but I was like, you know what is perfect when you're feeling a little down? Is something with a little heat, something with some intense flavor. I made some gumbo. I did not have any seafood on hand to add to the gumbo. Which is perfectly a little sad.
Okay, you can do chicken andouille.
That's what I did. I did chicken and andouille sausage. You know, it's very traditional gumbo.
I'm sorry, one more time. What did you call that sausage?
It's andouille, isn't it?
Andouille.
Andouille.
Okay.
Andouille.
There's a pair of L's in there.
Somebody's not from Nolans.
I'm a Kentucky boy, and we pronounce them L's like in Versailles.
Versailles.
There's a city in Pittsburgh called Versailles.
Yeah, we have a Versailles, Kentucky too.
Yeah, and everyone makes fun of us, but that's how we pronounce it.
Pennsyltucky. Let's go.
Yeah.
Derek, you're the wind in my Versailles.
But very, very traditional.
I appreciate that joke, John. Don't worry.
Yeah,
thank you.
I love you, John. Very traditional choice of ingredients, right? I made my roux right from scratch, real dark. You know, you got to stir and simmer that for a long time till it's like dark chocolate before you actually add any of your liquids. You know,
I did not know that I did not know until right this moment that people add chocolate to gumbo.
Some do, I don't. But yeah, you know, the classic Cajun mirepoix, right? Celery, green bell pepper, onion, a little jalapeno for a little extra heat.
What about a little okra?
Little okra,
in there?
Got some fresh okra, which I love to use. That's
actually
my
pronounced okra.
Shut the fuck
And
up.
shut the
man.
fuck up.
I need to try making it with filet powder, which I know is another way that it's commonly done, and I've never done it that way. I've always used okra, but yeah, and just I never skimp on my seasonings. It was good. It was a really good, and I was tipsy because once I got it finished and just left it on the stove to simmer for another hour, I was like, let's have a little bourbon, and I hadn't eaten anything all day. So it didn't take much. But I tell you what, good gumbo tastes even better when you're just a little tipsy. So,
I mean, that's pretty. I feel like literally anything feels better when you're a little tipsy.
that might be
Most
true. I don't
classic
know.
New Orleans food is always enhanced by a little tipsiness.
Yeah, I think that's how
Or
it's
not.
designed to be
It's fine.
eaten, honestly. But no, I'm feeling a lot better this morning, right? I've had a couple of good naps. I've eaten. I'm hydrated. You know,
Hydration is
good
key.
to go.
I'm really glad to hear that, Derek. I
drink one of these giant jugs every day. And as you can see, I'm very close to the end.
Now, I've got one more question I've actually got one more question for Finn, and we'll get going. It's not a video game related question, but Finn, all this talking about gumbo has me thinking. So, are you familiar with that Ralph the Baker guy on YouTube, Finn?
I am not.
You're not. So he's this guy who's from New Orleans, and he does all kinds of like cool recipes on his Blackstone, right? He's got a real thick Cajun accent, right? Derek knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Every time he finishes a sentence, he either says now or baby. Like
Yeah,
you know,
that tracks.
like is that how people
Yes.
in New Orleans talk? Like
Yes.
like he's like, slap some more butter on there now.
Yeah,
Put that parsley on there now.
That is
does
how
not surprise
Cajun
me.
rednecks sound. Yeah.
That is definitely a thing some people use to like accentuate and punctuate their own sentences. Yes.
I was just wondering because it's like literally every fucking sentence. It's either all right now or put it or like, you know, put that alligator on there, baby.
Yeah.
Like it's so fucking endearing. I love that guy. Like Ralph the Baker is fucking great.
Yeah.
Okay, I was very curious about that, Finn.
I'm glad we Southerners are so novel to you, you Chicago asshole.
Hey, look,
Nah.
in the Midwest we have two
Also,
seasons, salt and
Kentucky
pepper, okay?
is the loosest definition of Southern.
Yeah, am I in the South? Am I in the Midwest? Who knows? Are we Appalachia? Maybe.
Why can't we have both and neither at the same time?
Yeah.
All right, guys, video games. Let's get into it. Let's talk about it.
Sure.
We're gonna kick it off with what we've been playing. I'll go first because I'm gonna be quick. I just cleared Bahamut in my New Game Plus Final Fantasy mode playthrough of 16. Still such a great fight. Again, the much more difficult than the base game. So I'm really enjoying the level of challenge. Bahamut killed me twice. Enemies have a lot of health and they hit hard. And there's no more command prompts whenever a cinematic flash or evasion
you have
happens.
to go by the color.
Yeah, so it's like so it's definitely. And Finn, you're doing a New Game Plus playthrough, and would you agree with me that the challenge is dramatically ramped up?
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely remixed in some really good ways. Even just the way that normal enemy encounters can suddenly become a lot more deadly because they'll just randomly throw in an iron giant in the mix for no reason.
And that's the thing, Finn, is like I'm like I love like Final Fantasy 16 is a 10 out of 10 for me. My first playthrough. I'm actually even having more fun in this playthrough because there are even more classic Final Fantasy monsters that show up more often, like Ahriman type enemies and iron giants and flans, and like so it's been a blast. I'm having a lot of fun. I also hold on. Oh, somebody's just sent me a text message. I also have been playing the new Mario Kart courses that dropped the other day. My favorite Mario character, Kamek, is finally a racer. So I've got my new Mario Kart.
Can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not.
No, I love Kamek.
Okay.
What's wrong with Kamek, Derek?
No, nothing. I just didn't know. Nothing is wrong. I just didn't know.
Derek, you want to talk shit about Kamek?
No.
Do you want to fight me in real life?
Fascist.
I mean, technically, Bowser's a fascist
Yeah.
if you really want to think about it. But no, I love Kamek as a character. There's just something endearing about that character to me. So I've been having a lot of fun with that. And I've also started a replay of the Trials of Mana remake. I'm going to do a Duran run, which is just a great little remake of a classic Super Nintendo game. So that's what I've been playing. Grant, you are our guest. What have you been playing?
I've been playing 3 things. So I've been playing the Soulstone Survivors, which is this like vampire survivors-esque game where you can play as one of 16 or 18 different characters, and then it's basically like the survival. You're put in the arena and you have to face endless enemies. You fight like 5 different bosses as you progressively kill more enemies, and you can get different skills and upgrade your character. They each have like a skill tree post game where you can improve their stats and maybe make them have like new abilities per run. So it's really fun. I've been playing that on Steam. I've been playing Pokemon Starlight Valley because
Grant, I refuse to believe you're playing a Pokemon game. I don't believe it.
well,
Yeah.
so
What bizarre world is this?
after the North American International Championships were finished, they revealed the regional championships for the 2023/24 season. And the first one is in Pittsburgh. And that's where I live. So I'm beating it to build a competitive team.
Okay.
My friend is helping me. Yeah, I'm gonna compete, hopefully. There's also like some stipulations where I may not be able to compete because I'm a member of the press, so we'll see what happens. But either way I'm going. I'm very excited. I also have been playing Street Fighter 6
Now this I'm
because
curious about.
You just made Derek very
You got
happy.
my attention for sure.
so there is a tournament that was recently announced that is exclusive to disabled people. So I entered. And it's a community funded tournament, so the prize pool is all through donations. It will be in 2 weeks. I'll post a link in the chat, but it's very exciting to celebrate Disability Pride Month. Also because disabled gamers love competing, and I've found through following the community and through reporting on it that they love fighting games. There are so many disabled people who just like eat that shit up. So this is the first official disabled Street Fighter 6 tournament.
That's fucking cool.
That's
Wow.
extremely
Yeah.
goddamn cool.
That's cool as hell.
So I've been training for that.
I'm gonna try to find some time to if that'll be streamed, I assume.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna
weeks.
have to watch that because I'll be curious to see like as somebody like I'm a big Street Fighter fan, right? And you know I don't need a lot of the accessibility options that have been put into some modern fighting games, and I would love to see. Also, as a former tournament organizer, right? I used to run like local and regional tournaments for fighting games, so like I want to see how this is set up, and I want to see how all these people are accommodated. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
It's started by Chris Robinson, who is a very good consultant. He's worked with studios like Sony Studios before, Ubisoft Studios. Chris is deaf, and he's really big in the FGC. He's done a lot of ASL testing for tournaments like Frosty Faustins. For that competition. They always bring him up and he'll do ASL testing for them. So this is his tournament. He's going to be testing it for ASL. presumably there'll be other casters. But yeah, everyone's very excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's your experience been like with Street Fighter so far? Or Street Fighter
It's
6
The
specifically?
most accessible Street Fighter that I've ever played. So I'm a freak for Mortal Kombat and Injustice
Yeah.
games. I love those games. I grew up on them. I love just the seamless combo routes, and I love the characters. But for me, Street Fighter has always been a little bit too intense for my hands.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the combo routes require immense inputs and movements. And with modern control scheme, it's the first Street Fighter that I've been able to effectively play without issues. So it's very entertaining.
Yeah. I really hope. Yeah. Yeah. I really hope not just Street Fighter, but that future Capcom fighters, because Capcom's always been my favorite company for fighting games. I mean, I grew up on, Street Fighter, on Darkstalkers, on the Versus series, and like whatever else they put out alongside Street Fighter. Like, I really hope that they look at what they've done with this, and I hope that they expand on it, because I love sharing these worlds, right? These interests with people. God, you should have seen, was it last week where I was talking about trying to explain the lore of Mortal Kombat to John and he just couldn't.
I can't fucking, no, please don't even bring that. Like, dude, no. Like, I am still in physical pain from that fucking discussion, dude. Like, I don't get it. Like, okay. Sidetrack.
Fighting games are just
quick.
the most comic book video games
because
ever.
I need Grant's input on this, all right? Because this is something that has actually bothered me since we fucking had this conversation. Okay. So in this new rebooted Mortal Kombat world, Liu Kang is literally God, right?
He's
God.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's God. Okay.
Well, he's one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so if Liu Kang is God, then if Jesus Christ exists in this world, is he Liu Kang's son? And is the crucifixion a fatality?
Two things.
Your whole premise is flawed.
Yeah. Two things. Mortal Kombat, Liu Kang is not God. He's just a god.
So he's a small G god.
He's a small G god, yeah.
He's one of the elder gods.
God.
Yeah,
is
like,
he?
John, were you asking these questions when Raiden, the Thunder God, was around? Like,
Yeah.
No, because I
No,
didn't fucking
you
think
weren't.
about it, Finn.
Yeah.
well,
Anyway, Grant,
he would
please
have to
continue.
be one of the elder gods at this point because he has both Kronika's and Raiden's powers, and Kronika
Oh,
was
you're
an
right,
elder
yeah.
god. So
Who the
yeah,
fuck
Yeah.
is Kronika? I don't know
that's
what
the
any-
villain of Mortal Kombat 11,
wow.
the
John
elder
Ray
god of
showing
time.
his casual fanness out in the open.
Grant, please continue. Please continue.
So Derek's right, like, Liu Kang would be a capital G god. But then there would be no Jesus.
Yeah,
Because he doesn't exist in this universe.
he doesn't have to have existed.
He doesn't
Right.
have to exist, yeah.
Like
Technically, Liu Kang is Jesus, if you think about it. Because he
It's Lightning
remade,
Jesus.
yeah, he remade Earth in his vision.
did
being
he do
the elder god
did
of
he do it in
time-
7 days?
I don't think
Maybe?
time means much when you're the elder god of time.
Like, I can't take Mortal Kombat. Like, I know you're not supposed to take Mortal Kombat seriously, but I especially
yes, you are
can't-
actually. That's the
Okay.
crazy thing.
Okay, so
Mortal
here's the thing
Kombat
then,
lore
Derek.
and storytelling is very serious.
So here's the thing then, Derek. I can't take this shit seriously because
we haven't
of
been playing
just-
the story modes. You're not caught up.
because of
Yeah.
just how fucking like intense every single Mortal Kombat conversation ever is between two characters. It's like fucking the centaur guy Mortaro, right? Like if
Yeah.
that guy was giving a fucking weather report, he would be like, Thanks for your feeble tips on staying cool.
Man,
this
see, that's
summer,
how I know
Randy.
you haven't paid a lot of attention
Like-
since the PS2 days,
like,
because there's
Now for
there's
the
a lot
weather
better
report,
acting.
I, Motaro,
Yeah.
vow
I'm
by the
pretty
soul of Shao
sure-
Kahn that tomorrow's skies will be clear.
I am pretty sure John just watched the 2 movies and called it a day.
To be fair, not the worst time you can
Yeah.
have.
So here's the thing: I actually did watch the second movie.
So bad.
And
I
so
love it.
bad.
what the only thing I learned about Mortal Kombat is that any form of traversal that is not a front flip is strictly forbidden.
It's
in
Mighty
Mortal
Morphin
Kombat
Power
4.
Rangers rules. You got
Like,
you
yeah.
got to front flip over people.
If
Like-
you don't
like-
aggressively flip to your enemies, it's an insult. You have
Like-
to do it.
Like I remember that like Shao Kahn got insulted or lost his throne or something. I can't remember what it was, and he responded by like front flipping down the stairs as sadly as he could. Like
Yeah.
that's what he did. Like that is my only memory of Mortal Kombat.
We're gonna make
Whatever
John
the-
play all of the modern Mortal Kombat story modes, 9X and 11, and get caught up.
No, I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not.
dude,
No,
we're doing
Derek,
it.
Derek, you and I both know I'm not going to do that.
They're good.
I'm gonna do
Especially
it, and
with
John
Joe
has to
Jeff.
comment on it. John has to join me because they are good. I think it's the best
Yeah,
story modes
yeah.
in fighting games.
Yeah. Especially
do-
the relationship with like
I do know
Sub-Zero
that like
and Scorpion.
Yeah,
well, like
Yeah.
up until the recent Mortal Kombat games, like they weren't taken seriously as like on a Street Fighter level, like for technical, playability and strategies. Like it was more about like the I'm playing a guy who can rip someone's heart out and fucking look at this, man, I got 4 arms. That's pretty sick. Like
yeah. I mean,
But
it was
now-
definitely more about like the vibes than being competitive. Other than like UMK3 is like kind of workable as a competitive fighter, but like it was always the vibes. Like here's the messed up thing: Mortal Kombat was always for kids, right? Like
Yeah.
we know.
I mean,
it.
I was a kid when I first played it.
Yeah.
So
And it's sick.
yeah, and now it's like the tamest possible fucking shit you could come across. But anyway, what the fuck were we talking about?
We're talking about what we've been playing, and
No, I
Grant
know
was talking
that,
about
but-
fighting games, and
But like oh, it was Grant. Grant was talking. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Grant.
It's my fault. It's me. I'm the problem.
Ah,
Okay. Finn.
what's up?
what you been playing?
I'm not
bud?
just saying your fucking name. What have you been playing?
I'm just saying your name, Finn.
Thank you. So
Cinnamon bun. Let's do it.
I
Finn him and roll.
haven't really been. I beat Final Fantasy 16
Oh, good.
in the last week and immediately just started my Final Fantasy mode playthrough.
That's
and
my boy.
I'm not
That's
as
my boy.
far as John. I just finished the Phoenix Gate Fallen Chamber.
Oh, see, what you got to do, Finn, is do what I do. Just ignore your wife and just play video games all night. Like that's.
I
Oh,
wouldn't
you
admit to
know.
that.
It's a
I wouldn't
key-
admit to that
it-
live.
So I am just living life. I've also been playing a lot of Diablo 4 a couple nights a week.
Yes.
I have 3 friends from back home in New Orleans, and we all play. And we just finished Act 1. And I got to tell you, it's fucking crazy cool how seamless crossplay is when we're 2 of us are on PC and 2 of us are on Xbox, and you just can't fucking tell. We use the Windows like Xbox Social functionality baked into Windows. Jump into because I'm on PC. Jump into a Xbox party chat that my 2 friends on Xbox are already on, and we're just playing. And there is no hassle. There are no hurdles. We're just playing together with no issues, and it's delightful. It's my first experience actually playing a cross-gen game with people on different platforms, and it's lovely. So
Oh, is it, Finn? Is it
more
delightful?
games.
it is
it
lovely,
delightful.
Finn?
It's lovely. It's robust.
Ooh.
Every game should be cross-platform. That's like feasible to be cross-platform. It's good for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What do you mean?
that.
John likes his walled gardens.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. We're gonna get into that later. Trust me. Trust me.
Yeah.
Finn, you got anything else, buddy?
No, just those 2 games. But both of those 2 games are pretty significant time investments. So
hmm
Hey, I want to give a quick shout out to Maddie and Chat, one of our 2 newest mods.
I gotta also mod Maddie here
in the SDGC Discord, which I will say hovers around 400 people, and you should absolutely join if you're not already in there. Can we get a Nightbot in the Discord or in the chat here? There we go. We value and highly pride ourselves on progressive values like inclusivity and positivity and mental well-being. And if that sounds like your cup of tea, plus Final Fantasy, come join our Discord channel.
Also, the space is actually meaningfully moderated in the kind of way that giant platforms simply can't be. So
it is. It is. We crack the fucking whip. Like we're fucking
we don't
on that
have
shit.
To crack the fucking whip. But if something happens, like we decide what is right, not like what is on the list of rules.
I started the podcast and I've been banned from our Discord 5 times.
Yeah.
Like I'm just kidding. I have not.
I actually really miss like the old days of message boards when it was like, 5 dudes who were friends who started it and were all the moderators, and they would just ban people because the vibes were bad. And it's just like, you suck. Get the fuck out of here. Like, that was actually genuinely the best time of the internet.
And as our Discord has grown, we've needed more mods. We brought on Bronson and Maddie. But honestly, our community is so wholesome and pure.
And Delaby, too.
And Delaby, too. And, our community is so wholesome and pure that we don't have a lot of issues. So please come join our Discord community.
I think Rar just banned you again.
Did he
if he knows what's good for him.
He said 6 times.
Wow, that sucks. That sucks for me and for you guys. All right, and Derek, let's finish off with you.
Yeah. So exactly the same as Finn, right? I finished Final Fantasy 16.
I'm so happy you did.
I think Tuesday night I finished it. And I had a really good time with it. I am obviously like not as like over the moon about it as John is. I had a really good time. It is a game that I am going to be thinking about for a long time, and the ways that I like it make me think, and the ways that I dislike it and the criticisms I have are, again, criticisms that make me think rather than, and I think that's so much more interesting to me, right? To have a game where, like, even if I criticize its handling of like some major women, like I have a lot to think about how the game handles like its extended cast of women, right? And think about like, well, these characters were done really well, and this 1 or 2 were done badly, or at least
Mid is just so fucking good.
Mid's excellent. Like, I fucking Vivian, right? Like
Vivian, Tarja, dude. I gotta think for Tarja.
Karen, excellent character. You don't see a lot of her characterization coming. But like, right, like the things, even my criticisms of it are things that make me think. It's been a fascinating game that I cannot stop thinking about from an accessibility standpoint, which I'm going to hold on to for later, probably to say more. But like, I keep finding myself thinking about like how those aspects apply to such an execution heavy game. I would say it's hard. Like, John, you were asking me where it ranks for me,
right? Yeah,
which is
where it falls
hard
in the pantheon. Yeah,
because like me and ranking is a little different, because like 9 is my favorite, 6 is my second favorite. That's very clear. I've got like a tier right under that where it's like 5 and 12, and I can't decide which I like more, but those are like my tier 3. And then my tier 4 historically has been 4 and 10 and 8. And 16 is going in that tier 4 because it's like I don't like it as much as 5 and 12, but I like it a lot. These are games that are, I think, special to me, even if I have problems with them.
Well, the thing is like there's like aside from like everybody's got that 1 or 2 Final Fantasy games that they don't like. But let's be realistic. Aside from 2,
I like almost all this franchise. Yeah, I think 2's the only one that's a bad game.
Well, here's the thing: 2 is the only Final Fantasy game that is objectively a bad game.
I would say so. Yeah.
Like, and like for all the shit I give 8 and 12, I understand they're great games. They just 8 especially just doesn't do things that I personally like, but I can
Right.
appreciate the game for what it is.
But I reviewed Forspoken for us, right? And I said in my review of Forspoken that like I thought it was fascinating how much of Final Fantasy 15's DNA made its way into Forspoken, and it was clear that this team, right? Because it's the same. What's the name of the team? Luminous Productions.
Yeah,
Luminous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's clear that like they built. They took the foundation of like gameplay and design from Final Fantasy 15, and you know it's a totally different combat system. It's a totally different story and protagonist, but like you can see where the bones are extremely similar. Likewise, I think it's very interesting to see how much MMO DNA made its way into 16 because it's the same team as Final Fantasy 14. So for better and worse, right? And I think that's very fascinating stuff to me.
So we talked about this in our final review, which we should be publishing at some point soon.
Probably tomorrow.
Yep, probably tomorrow. What I will say, and Grant, have you been able to play Final Fantasy 16 at all?
Oh, yeah, I have it. I do have a PS5. I can't use it.
Okay.
Which I'll be able to in
December. We're gonna get into that. So 16 and Finn and Derek both know what I'm talking about here, so I'll just kind of like explain it to you know the chat and Grant here. Is you can tell this was made by an MMO team because every time you accept a quest, like everything stops and it says quest accepted, and you have to listen to this little musical jingle. It's like do 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 every single time, and then when you're turning in an item to complete said quest, even if it opens a menu and makes you pick the item and give it to the person, but the item's already highlighted, so it's just there.
And it's the only thing in the box, so it's like we could have skipped this.
And it's
just an excuse to hit 2 more buttons.
Yes, yeah. And like as much as I love the game, like Finn and I were talking about this in the review. Finn's like, I don't know why they did this.
But it's because it's built on the bones of 14,
yeah.
Right? Because 14 as an MMO, I mean, dating back to when 14 first released, that like flag system for like a key quest item that in the box popping up, like that's their way of confirming you have the thing. Right. And we really don't have to do that these days, but when they're building 16 off the bones of 14, like a lot of design decisions that are completely taken for granted about 14 are just going to replicate themselves in 16. And again, like it's just fascinating to see because some of it works really well and some of it doesn't, and that's okay. I think that's a really interesting game. I wish people would cool their jets about being weird about any criticism of the game.
The discourse about this around this game, both
the discourse has gotten
just been awful.
Distressing. I do wish we could just be like, this is a cool and fun game that has some issues, and that's okay.
Like not liking the game doesn't make you a monster, and liking the game doesn't make you a misogynist. Like, guys,
this is not the wizard game, folks.
We got to calm down with this.
Bigger things to save our energy for.
And 2 things before we move on, Derek. 1, can we give a shout out to Gav, because Gav is fucking awesome.
Oh, Gav's excellent. Yeah,
Everyone
loves Gav.
And 2, like at this point, it's not really a spoiler. This game, like for as much as it fails a character like Benedicta, it also really introduces an incredibly powerful gay character in the form of Dion.
Oh yeah, Dion. Dion. I love that Bahamut just makes people gay between Fang and Dion. Like, good job. Here we go.
And they do not shy away from Dion's,
they could do more with it, right? Like I've read like Kenneth Shepard, right, said in a Kotaku article that like he wishes that they did more, and I see that side of things of like it's relatively chaste and it's not super focused upon, but at the same time they did refuse to cut that kiss,
that same
in order in order to get the game like sold in territories that ban depictions of homosexuality.
Saudi Arabia. Yep.
So it may be a small thing, but it's a small thing they stood by, and that's a whole hell of a lot more than Disney has ever fucking done.
Yep.
So,
and also Dion has one of the coolest story arcs in the entire game, and he's also just one of the game's biggest. I mean, Bahamut, like he's fucking Bahamut. Like But yeah, anyway,
But
Derek,
so
what
anyway,
else?
Final Fantasy 16, and then like Finn, I've also been playing Diablo 4 now that I've finished 16 and feel like I can move back to Diablo 4. And I like Diablo 4. I'm working on Act 2 right now. I am a sucker for these games. I am a sucker for like the story and the lore of Diablo. I've loved them since the original game. I remember waiting for Diablo 2. I remember buying StarCraft and having the insert of the jewel case, having the like, coming, later in 1998, Diablo 2, and being so excited. And the game got delayed 2 more years after that, which felt like an eternity. A 2-year delay feels like nothing these days. But
Derek, so the reason I fell off Diablo 3 as hard as I did is because the game was overloaded online with hacked weapons and cheaters. Is that the case with Diablo 4? Have they been able to like?
I'm not having those issues, but like,
okay.
Diablo 4, I mean, I think if you just wanted to play Diablo on like a casual level, right, not be a part of the fucking meta game and the seasons, like if you just wanted to drop in and play either single player or like couch co-op with friends, because you can do that, and not think too hard about the online aspect, you absolutely can. And I think 4 is 10 times the game that 3 is.
Okay.
4 is what I wish 3 had been. Like so far narratively, aesthetically, like gameplay design, it is it's what I want out of the series.
Perfect. All right. Well, Derek, do we want to talk about accessibility first, or do we want to talk about Microsoft and the FTC?
Let's get Microsoft out of the fucking way.
All right, let's do it.
Because we're all tired of this shit.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Now, Reb Valentine has been on this really well.
There's a couple of excellent journalists, serious fucking journalists. A reminder of why games media is so important.
I mean, Derek, to be fair, we've got a serious fucking journalist on the podcast.
We do.
I'm not compared to them.
I don't like to play the comparison
You're a serious
game.
journalist. I will hear nothing else.
I don't like to play the comparison game because everyone's doing different work and a lot of people are doing important work.
Well, the reason I bring it up, Reb, is because she's a friend of the show. But
yeah, and Reb wrote I think one of maybe the best that I've read. She summary of what has happened. So Microsoft, and the FTC went to court. The FTC wanted to block Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, and the end result of the trial, which, not to say this is completely over yet, but the end result is that the judge denied the FTC's request to block the acquisition. So the ruling is that Microsoft can go ahead and buy Activision Blizzard. At this point, there are still it's not done yet. There's a couple of barriers still in the way.
Well, Derek, you said that the FTC is going to appeal, right?
The FTC has asked to appeal, so we are going to go through that process. I personally do not feel optimistic about the FTC's chances there, but they could, right? It's not done. They could win the appeal. The CMA over in the UK is also still blocking Microsoft, although the CMA's decision was entirely based on cloud gaming. It had nothing to do with a monopoly in the gaming space.
Chat's reporting the appeal was denied.
The appeal was already denied? Well, fuck.
It was denied by the original judge. So now it moves to the appeal.
It goes up. Yeah. So we could still. Okay. Fucking the court system in this country. But yeah, the CMA, there's so many ways. A lot of business journalists I'm reading are not particularly convinced that the CMA will end up blocking Microsoft in the long run.
I mean, at this point, I don't expect them to.
Well, they're pretty sure Microsoft will just make some concessions and some, divestitures in regards to their cloud gaming business, maybe just in the UK specifically, and that will be all it takes, because that's the thing they were focused on was cloud gaming. They didn't really care about whether Call of Duty is exclusive to Xbox or not.
So
this is for let's say 90%, this is done. So let me say, and we should talk a little about what is to come and how we feel about this.
Let me say something real quick, Derek, if you don't mind, and then I want to kick it to Finn and Grant.
Yeah.
I don't like this, and it's not because and like full disclosure, I own an Xbox. I don't play almost anything on my Xbox. I don't think I've turned it on in over a year. Um, I don't like monopolization. I don't. And before anyone says, oh, John is just saying this because he prefers Nintendo and Sony. I also don't like Sony paying Square, for example, to keep Final Fantasy 16 on PlayStation. I don't.
Yeah.
I hate that
Sucks.
shit. Like it sucks ass. And
it sucks
so
at Street Fighter, likewise, right? Like I love Street
Yeah.
Fighter 6. Why is Street Fighter 6 not on Xbox? It
doesn't make
sucks.
any fucking
It
sense.
is.
It is?
It is.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
It is.
You're thinking of 5.
You're thinking of
yeah.
5. You're thinking of 5.
Oh shit! I am still thinking
Yeah,
of
I
5.
have that. That's about
But like I see your point, right? Like
Yeah.
like and my fear here is multifaceted. One, I don't like the idea because this is going to embolden Microsoft to just like a fucking Hoover suck up as many third party companies as they can. Right.
Which we now know from court documents revealed during the trial that like they
they're
have a long list of
Yeah.
people they have at least considered doing it to.
Yep. And
It was almost Sega.
2, this is going to kick off a, for lack of a better term, console wars arms race.
I think
where
we're already there, but I'll wait.
I mean, like, so what I mean by that is, like, Sony, for example, does not have, they simply don't have the war chest that Microsoft does. So what they're going to do is they're going to do what they did with Final Fantasy 16 and just pay companies to keep their games on PlayStation, right?
Yeah.
They'll buy companies where they can, like Insomniac, but for the most part, that's what Sony's going to do. Microsoft is going to be emboldened by this, and they are going to try to vacuum up as many companies as they can. And I don't care what Uncle Phil says about, oh, we're going to keep, we're going to make sure these games are playable as possible for everyone. Dude, you bought Bethesda and you are making games like Elder Scrolls and Starfield Xbox exclusive. So don't give me platitudes about how you're going to make games playable for more people, because you're just not. And I've had a few people online tell me, hey man, like, you can play these games in your browser or your phone, right? But what if I don't want to? I don't want to play these games on a browser or a phone.
Well, I think the bigger point to that is like it doesn't really matter if you don't want to. There's a lot of people who would want to, but like, and this is where the UK's decision was built around, is like, okay, well, if you have the cloud gaming option, that's still Microsoft, right? Well, and Sam, that's a thing we've already talked about, right? Is that like Sony money having games to be off of Xbox specifically also sucks. And that's why I think like we're already in this arms race, and the Sony and Microsoft are doing it in two very different ways, because Microsoft has the money to just buy like tons of developers and publishers outright, and Sony doesn't, but Sony has the relationships necessary with other Japanese companies, especially to make those kind of deals.
I'll say this again. Sony paying Square to keep Final Fantasy 16 off of Xbox sucks ass. That sucks shit. Like, that's garbage. That's bullshit. And I want as many, like, obviously every developer is going to have first party studios, but I want games playable by as many people as possible. And I don't like Sony doing it. I don't like Microsoft doing it. Meanwhile, Nintendo's just like, you motherfuckers do your thing. But Finn, Grant, what are your reactions to this? Because I'm not thrilled with the way that this is taking the or at least with the way I fear this is taking the industry.
Grant?
I'm not a fan of mega monopolies of any kind.
Yeah.
So if Sony were doing this, I'd be mad. I mean, they're kind of doing it, like you said, with exclusives and things, but like they're not buying companies. Nintendo doesn't care.
Nintendo couldn't give a shit.
They doesn't care. But for me, it's unique because with the merger, this has the potential to exponentially increase Activision's accessibility efforts. So even though Xbox publicly shares all their accessibility information with the accessibility guidelines, like anyone can look it up, you can take free courses that they offer, which train you in accessibility game design. Hashtag not sponsored. But there's also the issue of, even though they may have these tools, it doesn't mean they're going to work. So I recently read a report on Starfield's concerns for IGN that disabled people are very concerned with the lack of accessibility info for Starfield, which is owned by Xbox. But we don't know anything about it, aside from the gameplay that they've shown, and Todd Howard has always said things like large font will be available. So even though Bethesda has those resources, we don't know if they'll actually use them. So it's kind of like 50-50, right? Like Activision could easily go at Xbox and be like, hey, how would you approach this? Now that we have access to your team, your engines, your systems, or they could easily just say, fuck it, we have our own people. We still don't need this. But it is a unique perspective that with the merger, they'll have the opportunity to use, if they want, Xbox's accessibility resources.
Well, and you know, Grant, I also want to bring something up that myself and you know, Derek and Sam Tolbert, a friend of ours, another excellent journalist, are talking about in chat, is the fact that the FTC could not have bungled this case harder than they did. Like they simply did not do a good job, because it was clear they do not understand this industry.
Finn, I can see that you've been chewing on where your thoughts are.
Yeah, Finn, please.
No, I'm just going off them. Like, you could tell that the FTC has the same base level of understanding of the industry as just your average Twitter person.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they got most of their opinions from some Twitter threads, but the thing with the Activision thing is, like, the Bethesda one was huge. But there's never been a merger this big before.
Not in terms of like monetary worth, no.
Right. So the thing is, do I believe Xbox when they say that they will keep these games on? They said 10 years. In 10 years, will Call of Duty still be the juggernaut it is? I mean, there's always ebbs and flows. But I'm just... It's a little weird, because Minecraft is the only other game, to my knowledge offhand, that Microsoft has kept multi-platform. Everything else has immediately become part of their walled garden. Like, I'm still bitter that
part of the old Xbox exclusive.
I'm still bitter I own Hellblade on PlayStation, and now I can't get Hellblade 2 on my same platform. I gotta now
that's another
branch out and get it. But I mean, it is what it is. They're not spending money to not make money. So,
but wouldn't they make more money if they released these games on more platforms? Like,
I mean, probably, but it's wouldn't Sony make more money if they released? I mean, that, and Sony has realized that, which is why Sony first party games are now on PC for the most part.
Right.
I mean, this is all armchair quarterbacking, like, the industry until this acquisition goes through and we see what happens with the next Call of Duties. Now, I mean, Sony's gonna obviously no longer have marketing rights and like pre-order bonus, like exclusives and stuff like that. But I look at how Sony has handled Destiny.
They've handled Destiny like garbage.
What do you mean? No,
dude, no. Sony is not like to my knowledge, and maybe I'm wrong here. Like, there are items and shit on Destiny 2 on PlayStation that are not available on Xbox. Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the case.
Yeah, that's
John. I don't.
If John hadn't cut me off, I was going to say that's probably how they're going to handle. Like, that's the kind of stuff you'll probably see in Call of Duty. where you're going to get Xbox specific or themed things that are only going to be on everything but PlayStation. But as long as it remains things like cosmetics that don't impact the game, then I think that's their right to want to incentivize you to come to their own ecosystem. As long as it doesn't do it in a way that impacts the actual mechanics or competition of the game.
All right, I was halfway right. Sam says that used to be the case, but it's not anymore.
Yeah.
So
I think for me the frustrating thing is that like Microsoft, Sony, and the FTC all came out of this trial looking like assholes.
Yeah.
Right? Like stupid fucking assholes. Like
no one got out of that looking good. Like there were no good guys.
Microsoft tried to go in playing the good guy, right? And the problem is we saw way too many documents, way too many emails that show exactly the opposite of the thing they are publicly stating, right? Which is all of this right now, the Good Guy Act, the 10-year pledge is a necessary front and a necessary attitude in order to eventually crush competition, right? They talked about spending Sony out of the market, right? They had a list of developers and publishers that they considered buying that was miles long that we know that they lied about, right? Like reporters reported on this stuff at the time and they lied publicly about, like, we now know that their statements were false. So now, like, it's kind of impossible to come out of this and feel like you can trust any communication that comes out of Microsoft to the public, because we know that they're liars and we know that they will do whatever it takes, say whatever they have to be the good guy now so that they can be the ruthless monopolistic corporation we all know they are, right?
Like nobody here actually believes that Call of Duty is going to stay multi-platform, right?
I think it will for 10 years. And then on year 11, it's fucking gone, right? Like, I believe they'll keep to that 10-year pledge, but the part of that that's missing is as soon as that, they're not going to renegotiate that shit. It's gone at year 11.
You know what's funny is that as bad as everyone comes out looking from this, like Jim Ryan still sucks more than all of them.
PlayStation sucks shit because PlayStation came in trying to play these really bad faith victim cards about, you know, oh my God, we're in such a weak position, and you know, fucking Call of Duty is uniquely, and it's like Call of Duty is not the reason PlayStation is in as powerful a position as it's been. And
I thought there was a report there that said 20% of PlayStation owners buy it because
only
of Call of Duty.
Call of Duty.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, where they said like 20% of PlayStation owners, their only game that they play is the annual Call of Duty release.
That's wild to me. But I mean, Call of Duty's huge, right? Like there's a reason all of this has focused around Call of Duty and not like World of Warcraft. You know what I mean? But
now here's a question for you.
Yeah.
So let's say next gen's coming around, you know, and you're a console maker that has to send their dev kits to publishers so that they can start working on launch games.
Mm-hmm.
These are usually very tightly held trade secrets from your competition.
This came up in the trial, actually.
So yeah. So if Sony wants a new Call of Duty made for PlayStation 6, they have to give Microsoft all of the details of their new system so that Microsoft can then build around what they know their competition is doing. Like that part sends yeah.
Well, that's already kind of true for Minecraft, though. Right? Like,
is it?
Yeah.
Well,
Microsoft owns Minecraft. So to have a PS5 version, they needed dev kits.
In terms of launch titles.
This is, and that's a point that Sam is also putting out, is that Microsoft had to send dev kits to Sony for MLB.
Yeah, for MLB The Show. But again, that wasn't at the start and launch of a new generation.
Yeah.
These platforms had been established. They knew what a PlayStation 5 was. They knew what an Xbox Series X was.
And the thing is, I think this is something that I wish that this leads to, like, where the FTC bungled things, because this is like framed this way, right? The way you're framing it, you know, that things are unique when you talk the very beginning of a generation potentially. Like the FTC was not prepared to handle these kinds of conversations, right? The FTC came into this like with overly focused on like, okay, Nintendo doesn't count. And it's like, why does Nintendo not count when you're talking about the larger game industry, right? The FTC comes into this asking just the stupidest fucking questions imaginable. And like you had an example of where they were talking about, well, will Microsoft have an incentive to make Call of Duty worse on PlayStation? You know, and Microsoft's like, no, we don't think so, because if we want it to sell, it needs to be good. And then somebody on Microsoft's side asked, like, okay, well, what about all these times PlayStation like paid Activision Blizzard for exclusive maps on PlayStation? Does that not make it a degraded experience on other consoles? And the FTC was like, we don't think so. It's like, you know,
but there was never any reason why. It's always just like, it's only bad if you say it, not me.
Listening to the FTC talk about the gaming industry and ask questions about the gaming industry is like hearing Congress grill Facebook. You know what I mean?
It was just embarrassing.
It's like listening to Congress talk about how video games create killers, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like listening to Jack Thompson talk about games that don't exist, like Counter-Strike, Half-Life.
Yeah. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating because I think whether you think that the merger should have happened or should not have happened, we all would have benefited from the FTC putting up a bigger fight in court, right?
Because the FTC doesn't understand the gaming industry.
Right. But if more pressure on Microsoft is good for workers, it's good for consumers, it is good for everybody but like the board at Microsoft, who are the people we should be least concerned about. And we didn't get that. You know, I do see minor silver linings here, right? Which is Microsoft has been, as Sam brought up in chat, Microsoft has been open to and like stepped out of the way for unionization in a way that most publishers don't. Certainly not one of the biggest companies involved in gaming, but they have done that. But like, let's not kid ourselves. They're only doing that because they have to be on good behavior. And like, they're doing that because they want us to say this right now, that it will be good for unions. And it might be true right now, but Microsoft has decided that that's worth it, giving that up for what they're going to get out of it. And I mean, it's also true that we stand the best chance of getting Bobby Kotick and Mikey Barra out of Activision and Blizzard this way.
Feels nice.
But I mean, it's not going to be like a great victory because Bobby Kotick is still going to be a multi-billionaire.
Did you see that he's going to walk away with from this with like $250 million?
Sure, he's going to walk away with more money than I could ever imagine. But he also will no longer be there to threaten fucking secretaries. Yeah, right?
That's
like,
true.
So, you know, it's as I put it to John in text messages, it's not justice, but it's less injustice. You know. Yay? So like, but it just sucks because I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable with the possibility that this case will be used as precedent in future cases for why Microsoft or Sony might continue doing this.
That's my problem. Yeah, that's my biggest fear.
You know, and it's just the direction I don't want gaming to go in. But, you know, here we are.
So do we?
I don't know if anyone else has more feelings.
I don't have a whole lot else to say about this. Like the whole thing to me, like I did obviously I disagree with the court's ruling. You know, and I hold on to a sliver of hope that this deal won't go through. That being said, I'm also just ready for this fucking saga to be over.
Yeah, I will do a crab rave when Kotick is gone. But
yeah, like when Kotick's gone, great. Aside from that, like I'm tired of hearing about this shit in a way, right? Like it's dominated the gaming.
Well, it's gonna keep happening, bud. Like, wait till Sony and Microsoft are in a bidding war over Ubisoft, because that shit's coming.
There is no bidding war against Microsoft. Sony.
Well, yeah.
Sony
people keep forgetting that PlayStation's doing well, but Sony will never have the cash reserves on hand.
That
yeah.
I mean, like its market cap is pretty good.
Sony's doing a lot better than they were 6 years ago, but
yeah, its market cap is pretty good, but like in the grand scheme of things, they do not have the cash to be,
No.
you know.
Like if they were to go and try and buy Square Enix or whatever, no one can. No, of course not. But no one could say anything anymore because how do you complain to Sony after Activision Blizzard goes through?
Yeah.
But the other thing is, like, what's stopping Microsoft from keep buying? Because they just won the Activision Blizzard trial. You think you're gonna win against them because they decided to pick up Bandai Namco? Like, I don't know.
Well, so to be fair, it is there are a lot more hurdles for an American company to buy a Japanese company. It's still possible, obviously. It's not as easy. But here's the wild card is Nintendo buy Squaresoft or Square Enix and then go back to making
Won't happen.
I know it won't happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, Grant's gonna be right back. But yeah, he's got to do something.
Yeah.
But
meanwhile, can I just say, I don't. This is an aside, but I mean, if we're gonna buy time before Grant comes back anyway,
yeah, please.
We're over here talking about these fucking corporate giants pissing it out over, what, $70 billion, to buy Activision.
Some disgusting fucking number.
Yeah, it's horrible. But what I did love to see is I don't remember exactly how this came out, if it's like a thing that Nintendo put out themselves or what, but there was we got to see like the pay scales for the executives at Nintendo, and like Nintendo's top executives are not paid that much.
Nope.
Well, it's actually pretty surprising. Like, is it, correct me if I'm wrong, was it Miyamoto at the top at like $2.5 million?
Like, apparently Nintendo Japan treats their people incredibly well.
Yes. Consistently, when we hear about Nintendo, not to fucking carry water for a giant corporation, but consistently what we hear is that their wages are higher than average, that they are...
There's no crunch.
They don't crunch, right? That their, like, labor, like, hours per week is a lot lower than most of the tech industry, than most of the workforce in Japan. Like, people who work at Nintendo have actual work-life balance in a way that's kind of rare in the Japanese economy right now. And that has, I mean, not to like knock on the same fucking thing that I get on every time we come to this, but like, it turns out that making a bunch of money and paying your employees and keeping employee morale up and giving them reasons to stick around gives you an incredibly talented, like the people who made Tears of the Kingdom are the same people who've been working on Zelda for how many years?
Yeah.
Like, and that's why they're so good at it. Like,
I mean, look at Metroid Prime 4. I mean, like, nobody's holding a gun to anyone's head over at Nintendo.
Retro Studios hasn't released a game since Tropical Freeze on the Wii U.
Wild. That was,
and they're still around. And if they were a Microsoft or Sony-owned company, they would be done. Like,
they'd be shuttered long ago.
So to me, like, I see what happens when companies like Microsoft and Embracer Group, right, go on acquisition sprees, is they buy a lot of companies and then they don't do much with them. Like, the stories out of Arcane about Redfall are not promising about Microsoft as an owner. And we saw what happened with Embracer, right? That the minute they stopped buying things, they like fucking faced a financial crisis. But then Nintendo and Capcom are on the other side of things, showing us that if you take that money and just reinvest in your people and reinvest in your company, your employees get their wages, their quality of life good, that like that finds you sustainable success. So I'm just here to fucking rah for the right way.
Well, I'll tell you what, here's something that we can really
Here's something we can rah about.
Accessibility in games.
Let's fucking go.
Accessibility in games. That is you. So Grant, what is special about this month that we're in right now?
So in May, when I was on, it was Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which was to highlight accessible innovations across multiple industries, particularly in tech. So I talked about gaming. This month is Disability Pride Month. So it was created after the ADA passed, or was passed in 1990. I should know that. I benefited from it greatly.
Wow.
I can't
Exposed.
fact check you right now.
Exposed.
I'm a fake disabled person. So it's used to celebrate.
1990. Yep.
Yeah, all right, we're good. I keep my card.
Your cred is secure.
Yeah, it's used to celebrate disabled people, the disabled experience, the way we interact with society, the way society treats us, the way how we need to keep fighting for and pushing for rights and equal access for other things. But for gaming, it's just another way to reinforce the continuous narratives that disabled people have a right to play games. Gaming is incredibly beneficial, both for socializing and therapeutic benefits. And when you actively shut out over 400 million global disabled people for gaming, it's a huge barrier that needs to be addressed. So
Yeah.
it's just a way to continuously raise awareness, talk about what the industry does right, talk about what it does wrong, which there are many things. But just continuously remind people, not just for this month, but the other 11 months, that accessibility and disabled people are important in all facets and in gaming too.
Yeah. Well, it's like earlier you talked about like, yeah, you've got a PlayStation 5 and you can't play it.
Can't play it for shit.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
so you know what? That's an so let's talk about that real quick, right? Because today, we learned that PlayStation's accessibility controller is going up for pre-order on July 21st. And I actually pulled it up on the PlayStation blog here to kind of read it off real quick. Available for a suggested retail price of $89.99 US. The Access controller lets you customize your layout with different button and stick caps in various shapes and designs. Operate the controller from any 360-degree orientation and connect third-party accessibility accessories using its 4 industry-standard 3.5 millimeter expansion ports. On your PS5 console, there are many settings for the Access controller that you can configure to meet your needs. You can map buttons to create up to 30 control profiles, adjust stick settings, toggle commands on or off, or disable buttons altogether to stop accidental pressing. You can even pair up 2 Access controllers and 1 DualSense wireless controller together and use them collaboratively. Check out the video below, blah, 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 blah. Like, this is an incredibly cool piece of tech. And I don't like I know woefully little about the stuff that goes into this, but Grant, is this something like obviously you are far more familiar with this than I am. Is this something that is going to enable you to be able to finally play your PlayStation 5 in a meaningful way?
So I'm hopeful, but we don't really exactly know yet because we still don't know like button sensitivity. We don't know stick sensitivity. They did show in the video you can adjust the sensitivity and the dead zone of each of the 3 sticks that it comes equipped with. But again, we don't know how sensitive the buttons are. We don't know like total cost yet, because presumably 1 controller probably isn't enough to fully access a PS5 library, because it only comes with 1 stick, not all the buttons. If I remember correctly, like I don't think you can have all the face, all the trigger and bumpers, and all the D-pad buttons. So you're gonna need either a standard PS5 controller, it's sort of like Copilot, which Microsoft has been doing for years, or you may need another access controller, or you may even need further switches from the adaptive switch tip from Logitech. or you may even need to purchase separate joysticks from third-party creators, like Warfighter Engaged is a great service that I've purchased several devices from. So there's sensitivity with buttons, perceived sensitivity with the stick, overall cost, because if we need more than two on top of like extra peripherals,
Like that can get prohibitively expensive. Yeah.
Well, Grant, I imagine that they've got to be sending these out to prominent disabled gamers like yourself to kind of like test drive these things or right?
You'd hope.
They are working with 3 organizations, Able Gamers, Special Effect, and I can't remember the other one. I believe it's a group that's working with veterans, if I remember correctly. So
Stack
they
Up?
are.
Yeah, Stack Up. Stack Up.
It is
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they're working with 3 organizations that help design the device. They're also working with consultants, individual consultants, to help bring their own experiences and their own perspectives. But again, the issue with disabilities are every disability is so individualistic. Even
Right.
people with my disability all experience it vastly differently. So there's no way to accurately say, like, yeah, they use all these people. It's gotta be good, right? In theory, yes. But until it's at like the mass market level, we just don't know.
There's
how
like
it
a
will
lot of ways it
function.
could go wrong yet.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
frustrating to you, Grant, that Sony has taken this long to kind of help make games more accessible for people? Because I mean, that Microsoft controller came out what, like 4 years ago or 5 years ago or some
5
shit?
years ago, 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and it was great from what I remember.
And there's tools to make it work on a PS4. So if you could just use PS4 controllers and adapters, then we wouldn't even need to be here. But here we are.
I will say, from a personal perspective, it's very frustrating. Because it's like, number one, as a job, for my job, I can't cover a third of the industry.
Yeah.
So and I haven't been able to, as a fan of these games, play them unless they're on PC. So it is frustrating. From a professional examination, PlayStation, in terms of accessibility, I would say is leading the industry.
Interesting.
With a lot of their big games, for sure. Yeah.
Their studio and software accessibility is, I don't want to say vastly superior, because it's not fair to the other companies who are doing great work. But
I'd say it's a gold standard, though.
Yeah, it's significantly where other games should be in terms of features, design practices. If you had to like rank studios that do it right, I would say PlayStation and all their studios. Immediately under them, Ubisoft has some of the best accessibility in the industry. Immediately under them would be Microsoft and all of their initiatives. But from a hardware perspective, PlayStation is trailing significantly, but from a software perspective, they're leading the industry, in my opinion.
Which feels to me like a really weird dichotomy, because you're right, like their major AAA first party titles were some of the first to truly pioneer these really in-depth and well thought out accessibility options. So you'd think they would have also realized the importance of working on it from a hardware perspective, and it seemed like they just did not want to put equal effort into both sides of the coin.
We also don't know about like budgets and
Yeah.
because those things are for designing an entirely new controller. It could be expensive. There's also culture. So Sony's a global company, and so is Microsoft. But Microsoft is primarily US based. Disability around the world, particularly in like Japan, is not treated, I don't want to say with the same respect, but it's treated significantly different than
Yeah.
here.
It's not the same priority we're trying
no.
to make it.
Right. And now you're dealing with layers of cultural, I don't want to say ignorance, because that's rude, but cultural, like, uncertainty of how to approach accessibility.
Yeah.
Cultural, like, lack of information, like, they may not have the entire resources to fully create these devices without outside assistance, which they may not know, like, where to look for. Like another thing, like, with Final Fantasy 16, the option for subtitles are called hearing impaired subtitles.
Right, which is not a phrase to use. Yeah.
No, we don't use impaired anymore. But they didn't mean to be offensive. It could have just been a translation issue. It could have been, a bunch of other factors. They obviously put it in, so they care about it. But the language used, is not what we use over here.
Yeah.
So it's a bunch of factors as to why PlayStation may have waited this long compared to Xbox.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. You bring up, Final Fantasy 16.
I was gonna ask you.
This has been an interesting one because it's one that I've been, as I played through it, and granted, I'm coming from the perspective of somebody who's not disabled in any meaningful way, but like I find myself looking at and asking myself, like, is this enough on various aspects of the game? I knew from the beginning that, like, okay, this is a game that's very execution heavy, right? So like what combination of like adjustable like settings and adjustable difficulty and adjustable like control options are you putting in for people with either like motor or executive disability, right? That game is visually incredibly flashy, and I could see it being very unfriendly to somebody who, has epilepsy, right? Or suffers from other forms of like, seizures that aren't specifically epilepsy, whatever. And it was like, can you reduce those effects? The motion blur was really strong, and we have a newfound acquaintance who was telling us that like the motion blur was so bad that it was something that she was just unable to play the game until they thankfully recently patched in the ability to adjust that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was a new update.
Yep.
That's what that was.
The game does not have like custom mappable controls. It has preset layouts, and they added some more layouts. And they've said that that's like a stopgap until they actually add in like remappable buttons. But like being able to let people map their own controls is a big step in letting people play the game however it fits them, right? On top of accessibility controllers.
But you want to bring up too, just a lot of people always say, well, why do you care if it's on the system level, because you can remap everything on the system level across all three major consoles.
Yeah.
Because you never want to rely on system remapping.
Yeah. Maybe it's just best if it's an option everywhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of like people who would just say it's on the system level, you're fine. So don't ever rely on system remapping.
So here's a question regarding Final Fantasy 16's accessibility for the group. I mean, specifically,
bring up the accessories.
Yes.
Okay, I have opinions on the accessories.
So So
I think we're similar.
So part of the accessibility, really all of the accessibility options in Final Fantasy 16 are equipable accessories. Ring of timely whatever, basically things that help you dodge in a much more
Or
they
auto
make
dodge,
auto
use potion, auto give
right.
commands to Torgal, like create less things for you to have to manage in terms of like fewer mechanics that you have to juggle, as well as simplifying like controls and timing. That's all really cool.
As
I really
somebody
don't like
who is able-bodied, I appreciate the effort, but I imagine that this is not satisfactory to a lot of the disabled community.
They should have just been options. I don't like that you have 3 accessory slots. So if I'm somebody who needs these things, I have to decide which 3 are important to me. And it means I have to forego the accessories that everyone else gets to use that give them other benefits, like, increased attack power or what have you. Like, it's a punishment in a way. Like, it's super counterintuitive if you ask me.
Grant, what do you think?
If I remember correctly, and I may be wrong again.
Shoot from the hip. Let's go.
Yeah,
let's do it.
they were never designed for accessibility.
Right.
They were designed for new players.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're kind of accidentally helpful in some regards for accessibility, but clearly
there's
not designed that way.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conversations where people are framing them as accessibility, and they were like, well, they should be more, but the issue is they were never designed to be that.
Yeah.
So they don't function properly from an accessibility standpoint because that was not their intention. He wanted you to use those rings to just, progress skill-wise naturally, and that as you became more comfortable, you would remove them and introduce yourself to the full mechanics. I don't think he ever wanted or expected people to beat the entire game with them without removing them. So now that I'm giving him benefit of the doubt, but a lot of people are like, yeah, these accessibility options, they suck, but they were never meant for that. So they're not going to function the way disabled people need them to, because that was never his intention.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother argument that you can make, your idea is good, but she wasn't thinking like that.
So these were essentially like an afterthought, is what you're saying?
Not an afterthought, they were disabled people.
Those accessibilities are not for someone like Grant, they're for someone like my wife.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. They're for new players.
When my wife, who plays video games but doesn't play stuff like Devil May Cry, right, picks up Final Fantasy 16, she might use those early on while she is trying to get used to the depth and complexity of systems, because she's not used to super tight dodge timings and stuff like that. And then when she gets better at the game, she's going to take them off. Those are training wheels. They're not, they're not accessibility options.
It's a good analogy.
That makes more sense.
And some of those things could work like that if they were implemented differently, but
or if they were baked into the game proper.
Yeah, it's not an afterthought because that was never his intention with them. It's just disabled people, unfortunately, incorrectly assumed that's what they were for.
Yeah.
But they never were meant for that.
And I my request to our audience, to our listeners, is the next time you're playing a big game, right? Think about, I'm going to assume that I know we actually have a decent number of disabled listeners and viewers. But for our larger, not disabled audience, I want you, when you play games, to think about these sorts of things. And it's not about finding reasons to tear games apart. You know, it's kind of like the stuff I was talking about with Final Fantasy 16 earlier. Like, if you love games, it should be interesting to you to think about the ways that these games are and are not accessible or approachable to different types of people and how those problems could have been solved, right? If we're going to, like, the Dark Souls needs an easy mode is like it's the lowest form. And like, if that's what it takes to get people start talking, that's what it takes. But that is the lowest form of the discussion. The more interesting form of the discussion is, what ways does a game like Dark Souls offer people the ability to customize their experience, and how could we further do that? Right? It's not as simple as throwing, you know, a half damage multiplier on everything and calling it easy mode and calling it a day. So. Yeah. So think about these things.
The one thing I always encourage people, since I started writing about accessibility, is if your answer to any like difficult situation, like Elden Ring or Dark Souls, is just throw easy mode on it. Imagine like you have a wound on your arm. It's kind of gross, but this is the best analogy I can come up with. You have a wound on your arm, right? Easy mode is the band-aid, and you slap it on. You still have to treat the wound. You still have to maybe get stitches, maybe antibiotics. You have to clean it. Easy mode won't heal the wound. There's no doubting it'll help you, but the bigger issue still isn't solved just because you have easy mode in the game. So like Elden Ring, for example, there are enemies that are only like understood, I guess, through audio indicators. Like the Black Knife assassins.
Yeah.
When they go invisible, you have to listen for their footsteps. For deaf and hard of hearing people, no easy mode is gonna fix that. For blind and low vision players, Elden Ring can be very, very dark. In a lot of it's like caves and catacombs and castles. Easy mode won't fix that. You need either better lighting sources or different like visual options. So accessibility is not like a one option solves everything. It's a lot more nuanced. It's a lot more, sometimes you don't even need options. Sometimes if you just tweak certain aspects of a game, you can make it accessible without like 75 options. Sometimes if a game has like 80 plus options, some of them may not even work. So then like the things that you expect to rely on just don't function properly.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, oh, this game has options. It's great. There's so much more to examine with accessibility than just like, this needs an option or this option should be removed. Because you need to look at multiple layers of options, game design, player base, systems. What system is it on? How does that impact the accessibility? It's so much more nuanced than just options.
It's an almost infinitely complex subject.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know, people who love video games, right, as a hobby, as an art form, as you know, however people choose to engage with it, you know, I think what I'd like to see more people do is start treating, like, looking at accessibility as a part of their analysis of the art form, right? Like, people even casually can talk about graphics and frame rate, right? Can talk about art style, can talk about music, you know, because these are things that people are attuned to thinking about when it comes to movies and TV. You know, they're attuned to listening to music in general. So like those are aspects that they're able to talk about and think about in their words and how it impacts them. And I would like them to start thinking about the mechanics of the game itself, right? And how these sorts of things, you know, there's this great lightning bolt moment that happened in my head a long time ago when I was first getting introduced to this subject about like, oh man, like games like turn-based RPGs, right? Or like strategy games and simulators, you know, are inherently more friendly towards a lot of disabled folks than, you know, a lot of the action games that I really love. Because if you're playing something like Pokemon or Dragon Quest, you have a menu and you have that, like, you're not getting penalized for an execution barrier, you know? And that is such a basic realization to come to, but start thinking in those terms. And like, I think you'll come to love the art form more, right? When you think about it this way, when you think about it critically, I think when you think about how we can do better and expand your understanding, like, you learn to love and appreciate this industry even more. I don't know.
No, I
Yeah.
think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
No, it's. I mean, honestly, it's an issue that is personal to all of us, but no more personal. Not anywhere near as personal to someone like we all have disabled friends, right? But at the end of the day, Derek, Finn, and myself are able-bodied individuals, and Grant is not. And so, Grant, I'm really, really appreciative
I'm
here. What's that?
not everybody.
Shit.
Well, damn.
Since
We
when?
weren't supposed to tell him.
Wait, when?
Spoiler
When did this
alert.
happen?
Spoiler alert. No, Grant, we greatly value your insight
Thank
into
you.
topics like this. And so
Thank you.
I'm really glad that you joined us tonight.
Thank you.
It wouldn't have felt right talking about it without you here.
We still do
Grant,
sometimes, but
You
but
do a good
not
job.
but well, not as good as you, anywhere near as good as you. And Grant, if people want to see real journalisms, where can people find you on Twitter? And Blue Sky, because fuck Twitter. But
Oh, I hate
Blue
things.
Sky's not in a great spot at the
Blue
moment.
Skies
But
didn't fail.
is it not? Is it not?
It's not. It's just. I'll give it, but like, I don't even know my Blue Sky handle. I don't even use it. Dude.
I give
I don't.
up.
God, are we gonna be forced to go to fucking Threads?
If you want my prediction,
I'm not going
yes.
to Threads.
If you want my honest prediction, give it like 6 months, and Threads will be the dominant platform. If they can start rolling out like actual updates, like our following tab, and all these other, options that they've confirmed are coming, they will easily surpass Twitter.
God,
Which
I just
sucks,
wish
but
apartheid Clyde hadn't bought Twitter. God
Yeah.
damn it.
Yeah. Did you say
he did
apartheid Clyde?
obliterate it.
Yeah.
All right, Grant, where can people find you most easily?
Right now, Twitter, until I'm banned because I'm part of the resistance. You can follow me at super_crip1994. I'm also a freelancer for Wired, Inverse, IGN. I have a monthly column at IGN, write up all about disability. I'm also a freelance reporter for IGN now, so you can read some of my reports there when they release, and I share all my updates on Twitter until it explodes.
Perfect. All right. Again, Grant, you are a great friend of the show, and we always appreciate your insight and your friendship.
Thank you. You do.
You're basically always welcome on the show, man.
Of
It's
course,
always
yeah.
a joy.
You've got an open door policy. As for the rest of us, you heard it here. Tomorrow we should be publishing part 2, the final part of our Final Fantasy 16 review. Finn has been crushing all of his streams. Great job on that, Finn. And of course, also thank you to Square Enix for the code and the chance to review. We'll be doing that. And hey, guys, We'll see you next week. Remember, kindness costs nothing. Come, find us next week right here on twitch.tv/official SDGC at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Maybe Barbenheimer.
No, I'll be here
I'm
doing
so
something. I don't know.
excited.
I don't know what it is.
I'm
So like
excited.
the whole podcast is like out next week doing other things, but me. So I'm going to do
Barbenheimer.
I'm going to do something here. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be something. So we will. I will see you next week.
You should dress like a Ken.
Maybe I should.
Yeah.
Do it.
Good night.